recording this lecture. If anyone does not consent to having their image or voice recorded, please do not speak at this time. Okay, lab 6.6 through 7.1. So let's start with 6.6. 6.6. I know we did a little bit of this before, but I want to really go into it in detail. All right. 6.6, we started with a crucible. And into that crucible, we put some plain copper. All right, the element copper. And that is a pure substance because it's only made of one thing. All right. We then heated that crucible. All right, so we put in a lot of heat. And we got a significant change. Now I'm going to use blue instead of black because I'm using black. But we got a significant change to that in two ways. We saw that we had a mass change. All right, now delta, this little delta refers to change. We had a change in mass and we had a change in color. So we had chemistry going on. There was an actual chemical reaction. So up here we had copper, but there was also something else present that we couldn't see, and that was the presence of oxygen, O2. All right, so the oxygen was there. And so when we were finished, we made copper oxide. Copper oxide is a compound. All right, copper oxide is a compound. It's made of two different things. But it is always in the same ratio. It's like water. If I say water, you say H2O. That's why I showed you the video on, what do you call it? The video on the Hindenburg and the video on separating water out. Because you're always going to get 2 parts oxygen to 1 part hydrogen. Always, always. Or excuse me, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. I misspeak. All right? And so this is a compound. This is a pure substance. All right? Now, did we get, the question at the end of the lab was, did we get all of the copper reacted? We didn't know. So we did some chemistry over here. Now what we're going to do in 6.7 is we're going to not do any chemistry. We're just going to try to separate out a mixture. So we put the test tube, we put the copper oxide stuff in there, and what we did was we added a compound called hydrochloric acid. It's actually hydrochloric acid in water. And we demonstrated that hydrochloric acid won't dissolve copper, but it will dissolve copper oxide. And so what we found was that after we put the hydrochloric acid in with that solid, we saw that we had some red left. Now, what that leads us to is this. That leads us to the idea that, okay, this was not pure copper oxide. How do we know? Because, again, we had some copper. So there must have been some copper still in that solid. Because when we were finished, we had 2 test tubes. One of them was solid copper again, that element, and the other had a dissolved mixture of copper oxide. So no chemistry. All we did in 6.7 was separate the mixture with which we started, and we got it down to the 2 different parts that we had present. All right. Now, the last lab, 7.1, we went back to doing chemistry. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. What we did was we went back to the mixture, the solution of hydrochloric acid and the copper oxide. And what we did was we added another element. All right, you memorized the symbol for the element, zinc. And we put the zinc into there, and we saw chemistry going on. How did we know chemistry was going on? Because we had bubbles, we had a color change. All right, and when we were finished, once again, what we got was we got the red. The copper came back. So this copper that was in copper oxide, that was in this compound copper oxide, was separated out. So if you want to think about it, what was going on was the copper oxide, the copper was together with the oxygen. They'd made a couple. The zinc comes in and takes the oxygen away from the copper and leaves the copper alone. So what was going on is copper oxide was separated, zinc came in, tore that copper oxide apart, and we ended up with the zinc up, instead of being a solid, the zinc was up here in solution. Okay, so again, quick review. This one we did chemistry. We changed the mass, we changed the color, we made a compound. This one we separate out of the mixture. We took the hydrochloric acid, we put it in there. It couldn't dissolve the copper, but it could dissolve the copper oxide. In the last lab, we added zinc in. The zinc traded places with the copper, stripping the copper away from the oxygen, leaving copper and oxygen up here in the solution, or excuse me, leaving zinc and oxygen up here in the solution, and leaving the copper down here at the bottom by itself again. All right, so that's the synopsis of the 3 labs. Now here's the thing. I didn't expect you to know exactly what was going on. The reason I threw you into the river, if you will, threw you into the pool, you know, in the deep end, is when I wanted you to try to figure it out, and then I wanted to see if you could understand it once I'd explained it more thoroughly. Okay? So this isn't me telling you what to know, this is me getting you to think. All right. I am going to stop the recording at this time.